We are so blessed in the center to have this kind of talent, aren't we? Yeah. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce our speaker today, and I'll wait till our stage crew. Isn't he wonderful? Ron. Our next speaker is very special to me. She was one of my teachers in ministerial training. My first opportunity to have someone other than Dr. Dennis and a totally different point of view, which I didn't appreciate at the time, but I sure do now. This woman has such clarity, and she speaks from the heart, and you can't help but take that heart trip with her when she's speaking. So it is my honor to introduce you to my mentor, my spiritual sister, and a wonderful friend, Reverend Dr. Sue Rubin.
Maggie, thank you. Mwah. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. What have you learned since last we met? Emerson said that, actually, after he would take a sabbatical from teaching and he would return. That would be his first question. And so today we're talking about man's search for meaning in a topsy-turvy world. Have you noticed it kind of looks that way? And so the ministers of Centers for Spiritual Living have a listserv. And on that listserv, there's an open line of communication, which, as the statement goes, can be very interesting. And recently, though, someone sent a beautiful 1972 YouTube clip from Viktor Frankl. And I had never heard him before. And the passion, anybody ever see that YouTube? Check it out. The man is passionate and he's articulate, even with that thick German accent. It comes through unmistakably. And this spoken by a man who experienced the danger and the pain and the struggle of being in Auschwitz. Actually, he was in 4 different concentration camps. And he was submitted to the most horrendous treatment. And because his background was in neurology, and because everything that was connected to mind and body became of fascination to him, he became particularly focused on suicide. And what he noticed was there was a common thread that the people who had the urge for suicide, and he based this on 2 specific interviews that he did with 2 fellow prisoners. And he asked each of them separately why they wanted to commit suicide, which they admitted to him. And each of them separately, without knowledge of the other, said, "Because I expect nothing of my life." And he sat back in his chair and he said to them, "Perhaps you would consider that even though you don't expect anything from your life, life expects something from you." Life expects something from you. Would you say after me, life expects something from me? So that started a whole chain of thought that is related to everything we teach in the science of mind. The Centers for Spiritual Living have designed a certain statement which represents their vision, which if centers throughout the world choose to implement it, they can all be following the same theme. And the theme for the year is a world that works for everyone. And I thought to myself, that's very nice and very noble. But what I've discovered in my over 30 years as being a minister of religious science and teaching the science of mind, it's until I get my own world that which is close to me, my family, my friends, my city, my state, my government, my community, until I can get those structures stabilized, it's very hard for me to picture a world that works for everyone, everywhere, under all conditions, at all times. So I've kind of converted that to say working for a world that works, meaning that it's up to you and up to me to discover something that life wants to express by means of you and by means of me. And so the theme for this particular week is the realization of the power of mind. Now, as students of the science of mind, or of any metaphysical teaching, we know that there is an infinite intelligence, that it is universally available and accessible to each and every one, and we personalize it to the effect that we recognize its existence. And somehow, the minute we recognize it, it becomes itself by means of us. That which is created in us is sustained and maintained by that which created us. Very nice. There's a power for good in the universe. We can use it. In fact, we are using it, whether we're aware of it or not. Very nice, very lofty. And meanwhile, the world is spinning around us as a reflection of everything that you and I have input thus far. At one point, after he was freed from the concentration camps and went on to write his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he became an international speaker, and he was asked to speak at Karl Marx University. And the moment he got there, he very clearly stated, look, I'm not here to convince you of the Western democratic political view. And he used a phrase which I think is so applicable to what's going on now. And he used the phrase, I am meta-political. So if I'm metaphysical, I see beyond the physical to an indwelling, originating causation. And if I'm meta-political, I see beyond the rhetoric, and I see beyond what is appearing, because what is appearing and what I'm seeing is an invitation to judgment, to criticism, to blame, to condemnation, to anger, to a desire for retaliation, to separation, to disputes, would you say? However, if I take a stand for principles of wisdom, of integrity, of clarity, of that which represents the infinite intelligence that is in me, through me, and around me, if I access that, then perhaps I can look with that which Robert mentioned at the point at which the veil is very thin. In fact, I can pierce through the rhetoric, and I can instead listen to that silent, still voice which proclaims perfection, harmony, grace, ease, goodness, possibility, alternatives, and a meaningful life, something that life wants to reveal through and by means of me that exceeds my limitations of what I'm presently looking at. I can see beyond existing conditions. So seeing beyond existing conditions, I just came to a realization of how timeless and spaceless we are. Because a week from today, here I am in this here and now relative mode, standing here, you're seated there, everything is going on around me that represents everything cumulative that has brought me to this moment's realization of what mind has done through me to bring me thus far. By next Sunday, because I'm timeless and spaceless, I can see it. In fact, I had to see it first before it could happen. I will be on the high seas traveling from Miami on a cruise ship to Bermuda, because after all, I got to get that ballroom dancing in somewhere along the line. And it's not happening on this stage, or who knows, maybe it is. So if indeed that all starts with an idea, then he was right, as have been many philosophers and teachers, the Christ, because his concept was such that if you see man the way he currently is, you are condemning him to remain the way he is. However, if you presuppose or imagine him as he could be and ought to be, when you see the harmony of that infinite intelligence, that perfect, impelling presence of love, something about that kicks in too and harnesses the universal energy, which causes everything to rise, because that which rises together converges. So if you and I are indeed integrally involved in a spiritual community that teaches metaphysical spiritual principles, then it can't end right here where we're sitting in this safe cocoon on Sundays or in classes or at social events or through music. You notice what happens when music happens? There is such a commonality of being sucked into that center place. I mean, a room that contains a group of people can become that quiet. And although it's quiet now, there's something about silence that truly increases that level of quiet. So the spiritual practices are what take us where we want to go, but if we don't go from that point on and represent something greater than what we're looking at, then we have no one to blame or to look to take responsibility for the evidence that will show up as a result of what we're thinking. So I just finished teaching a class over at the Westlake Center, a great book which I would presume many, if not all of you, have experienced. Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements. Anybody? Yeah. So my jaded, been around the block a few years says, for God's sakes, I've taught this book 100 times. It's part of an accredited curriculum for Science of Mind now. And so I entered it with this, I know it all. You don't have to tell me to be impeccable with my word, to not take it personally, to not assume, and to do my best. Ho-hum, what else is new? So it's like the Science of Mind textbook or anything else. You pick it up, and again, it's like, yes. And then suddenly, whoa, he didn't have that print when I saw it the last time. What's different? So what if every teacher, every mystic, every saint, every philosopher from time immemorial has really been saying the same thing? The power of the word that you and I speak is a creative force in the universe. It isn't haphazard, it is not random, and it isn't something to be flamboyantly or used in a cavalier fashion. The power of the word is such that everything that we say, particularly when it carries emotion, has an impact on and is impressed into that soil, that soul of our own garden of infinite possibility, and becomes the thing. The thought becomes the thing. So if indeed my word, the words not only that I'm speaking conversationally, are elevated to see things not as they are, but as I know they truly are, in the infinite scheme of things, where there is harmony, there is wisdom, there is integrity, there is life wanting to be significant in a way that I may not personally view myself or my contribution as being significant. What if not only is it the word I speak, but it's my communication, both in receiving and speaking on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on every email message? What if that cumulative representation of the race mind that Holmes talked about is having its impact in a negative way, contributing to the whole issue politically and economically and globally and locally? What if your impact and my impact is such that we can either be planting our seeds of thought in a collective field of wisdom or in ignorance that forgets who and what we are? So the great conversation on this listserv has been, do you talk about things currently that are happening politically and on the scene? And it's all, oh no, many people say, I don't want to offend anyone. Well, why the hell not? Because if I don't take a stand for something, what's the rest of that statement? I'll fall for anything. So this is not to politicize, and this is not to endorse or condemn any candidate, but it most certainly is a time to attest to the principle that there is an answer, there is a solution, and I'm it. I'm as far as that goes when I determine that I have an impact, and what I say means something to the entire scheme of things. So Frankl went on to describe that really everyone wants that search for meaning, a reason that gives us something to shoot for that exceeds the boundaries of what I'm presently looking at. You know that, and I know that. The power of an idea. Stephen Covey said it years ago in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Begin with the end in mind. See it the way you want it to be. And now the call is, that just doesn't mean I see me with all the money I want and all the houses I want and all the toys I want, and my kids love me and my partner adores me and they promise to be with me forever, and everything is about gimme, gimme, gimme. Well, long past that, because the universe and the global experience of life is showing us what we have thought this far. And if we continue to think the way we have thought this far, then there's no one to blame. There's no one other than ourselves to take responsibility for the outcome. Holmes talked about there is a logical sequence and an inevitable consequence to the way we think, to the way we feel, to the way we believe, and how we communicate that to everyone in our world. So if I look at my life, and we have to start there, I can only start with myself, and to the degree that I come clean, that I am impeccable with my word, that I say I have blown it on some occasions. Not really. Then we start making exceptions and exclusions, and but they were involved. I love having conversations about, well, you can't tell me that I'm responsible for it. He's saying that to me. He said that to me. Excuse me? Talk among yourselves. Tell your partner what I just said. You know, I discovered a great opportunity, and that is I could send my luggage, departure, you know, we got to shift around here. I could send my luggage ahead of me so I didn't have to be involved with carrying it aboard the plane to get to Miami, to get from Miami to get to the ship. And I thought, that's for me. That was designed for me. So after it was all said and done, FedEx came, they picked up my luggage, they send it, they bring it to the airport sends it to Miami, to a regional office of this company that then puts it on the ship when the ship arrives in port. After it was all said and done, I called back and I said, by the way, how much does this cost? Because up to that point, I didn't pay a cent. It was like, this is a good deal. Thanks a lot. Catch you later. So, but that's the power to me of knowing whatever is required, I am provided with if I indeed hold firm to being consistent as well as being impeccable with the word I speak, the word I convey, and the faith and conviction and acceptance. He talks a lot about that in the textbook Holmes, that there must be faith, conviction, and acceptance of this greater idea, that there is meaning for my life, that even if I, in the midst of circumstantial evidence to the contrary, am not convinced of that as a possibility, life expects me to hold to that vision. Frankl was describing that when he was free and he came back and his book attained such popularity and he became an international speaker, he also decided at the age of about 74 or 75 to take flying lessons. And what he discovered was a technique in flying that is called crabbing. Anybody know about crabbing? Sounds kind of sickly. What it is, if you're carried in the waves of these winds, and you're going for B over here, and you started at A, just like in sailing, you've got to be tacking. You have to overestimate your destination, and that will take you through the winds and get you to your destination. Overestimate. And that, he said, was perfect not only for flying, but again for this overestimate the quality of a man's capabilities, and he will rise to that occasion, or he will fall to your lower expectations. So this is really about looking at ourselves in a bigger picture, to really be part of a universal movement of mind, that we can take these principles and truly apply them in a way that uplifts, inspires, and makes the necessary adjustments in thought that refuse to be limited by the conditions we're looking at, but rather that's the prompt to act from a higher place. The statement in Science of Mind is, I know all I need to know as I need to know it. The other part of that that's not often repeated is, I know all I need to know is I need to know it, and I am impelled to act upon what I know. I am impelled to act upon this knowingness. It's not enough. Maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years ago, it was enough to walk around and go, oh my God, I just discovered this amazing principle. And I'm going to meditate, and I'm going to be mindful, and I'm going to keep myself focused in that conscious contact with the universal mind of clarity and compassion. That was good then. It's not good enough now. Now it's, what are you going to do with what you know? What are you going to give with what you got? Where are you going to go with what you're holding on to? Now it's time to let everything that we've squeezed in through the courses and through the classes, through the books, through the CDs, through the DVDs, through the interweb seminars, let it out. Let it be a blessing so that every time a headline comes on or every time a report comes in about, what's that guy's name, Frump or something? I don't know. I don't know. I see it as a call to prayer, to say, I know that within myself, equal to that which is within all, there is an intelligence, a creativity, a higher level of consciousness, and if it doesn't start with me, I don't know where it starts. I can't do anything about the world until I first, again, clean up my own act. There's a little poem by Rubin that says, that which you seek apart, and yet the thing that you seek, thou art. So look in the mirror upon which you gaze and live in that space. That's what we're here to do. We keep like, where is it? I know it's somewhere. 7 keys to financial freedom, 22 keys to inner peace, 5 keys. How many keys can be floating out there, for God's sake? And all the while, the scripture said it so many years ago, look not low or there, here or anywhere. The power is within you. Know you not that you are the temple of the living God. So with that in mind, let us take this into consciousness together. So I just take that moment to be still and know that right where I am, infinite creative intelligence, impelled by the presence of love, is. It is mighty, it is lofty, it is vast, it is spaceless, timeless, eternal, infinite, immortal. And I am it. I am the thing itself, created out of the mind of God, spiritually endowed with the very nature of that which God is. I am. And so I speak my word, knowing my word is a law of enforcement to the divine truths I attest to. So I attest to, I declare, I pronounce that by recognizing God within, through and all around me, God is everything I am. Therefore, I am steady. I hold firm to the inner course of divine guidance, not only knowing that mind provides me with everything I need to know as I need to know it, moment by moment, day by day, in every way. Not only is this knowingness the source of my very being, but I am equally impelled to act upon that which I know. And so I take positive creative action, spiritually steeped in speaking highly of myself and everyone. I refuse to submit to condemnation, to judgment, to blame, to ridicule, to anger, resentment, or an urge for retaliation. I put down my arms and take up the armor of Spirit itself, perfect God, perfect mind, perfect being, perfect life, perfect cause to my every experience. And so I see things rightly, for I am in right relationship with the one creative spirit, mind, God, that is, has always been, and shall forevermore be. Wholeness, integrity, harmony, intelligence, and the wisdom and compassion with which to share the truth, the whole truth, and only the truth. So I know that every thought I think, every feeling that supports it with energy of enthusiasm and positivity is indeed planted in the universal field of undifferentiated intelligence and becomes a universal field of wisdom. For I, as I am lifted, lift all those with me. So I take heed of what I say, what I write, what I feel, and how I take this stance of nobility that is greater than what I may humanly perceive, and I take it out in the marketplace. Everywhere I go, I am a messenger of truth, of beauty, of possibility, knowing there is always an answer, there is always a way, there is always an elevated consciousness of spirit to follow, and I choose to be carried in its wake of awakened awareness and constructive action. I give thanks for knowing this collective truth is embodied individually by one and by all, because what is known in mind in one place is known everywhere. That is the universal truth that I choose to personalize in a way of high-mindedness, of wisdom and kindness, and of generosity of spirit. I accept this. The Lord knows and does what needs to be done, and I am its implementer of good. Today, tomorrow, and always, I give thanks this is so, as together we declare, and so it is.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sue.